Morning, brothers. This is probably going to be quick. I'm coming off a long, hard weekend that was still really great. Um, Maybe Gavin is too, since I think he went to a concert in Chicago this weekend. So that, I imagine, was both fun, I hope, and exhausting, because there's a lot of driving and staying up late potentially and things like that. Um, um, so C2E2, we were donated a table, or a booth at C2E2, which is the Chicago Comics Entertainment Expo this year, for my charity, Chicago Loot Drop, which, if you don't remember, we partner with Child's Play Charity and Comer Children's Hospital on the South Side in Hyde Park to buy toys and games for the kids there, because they don't have, the hospital doesn't have a budget for entertainment for the kids. And for C2E2 every year, what we do is we get some of the long-term patients to write down, or sometimes we do illustrations of what kind of superhero they would be if they could be one, how they would help people, what their uniform outfit would look like, things like that. And then we get local artists who this year were all in Artist Alley, which was right across like the walkway from where our booth was, which was awesome. They all illustrated the responses, and we raffled off the original artwork of those illustrations. We met a lot of people. It was really great. Super thankful to the folks who run C2E2 for letting us do that. And yes, that all happened. But it meant standing up for like 10 hours straight, a couple days in a row. So, we'll see how my commute to work goes today. It could be fun. Things I still need to talk about are Zelda. Zelda, I don't know if either of you brothers know this, but it's one of the first open world games of the. And you might think about like Skyrim or Grand Theft Auto as like the big examples of open world games now, but Zelda was what, like 1986 or something? It was like way before those. And it's neat to look at all the other games of that time, especially console games, and see how far ahead Zelda was, the original Legend of Zelda. I suppose things like the Ultima games on PC were also front runners. It's sort of weird to try to figure out where you draw the line for open world. Maybe there isn't a sort of definitive beginning, but it's sort of a gradual progress thing. Did I mention my master's project was making a graph database of a Zelda game? It was Ocarina of Time, because that was it's another sort of important moment in at least the Zelda franchise where like the structure of the game, well, it was the first 3D one, I think, but it was also the structure of the game became unlock a weapon or tool or something that sort of unlocks a new mechanic for you, which gets you access to a new dungeon, and that dungeon will train you in using that mechanic in different ways, and then you use that mechanic to defeat the boss at the end of the dungeon. You see sort of hints of that in prior ones, but it's really becomes codified around Ocarina of Time. And so if you think about all of the Zelda games, it's considered the first modern one, both because of that structure and because of the 3D. Anyway, so yeah, my master's project was taking the game and creating sort of database entries for all these items and locations and actors, either Link himself or enemies or NPCs, things like that, and then drawing all the connections between things. So like this item is found in this area and it's used on this enemy type, things like that. The idea was that a lot of people were talking back then about Mass Effect 3 and how the series was, in their minds, all about choice, and that their choices were robbed in the end because they weren't able to really control the fate of the universe. Spoilers? Sorry. But my take on it was that it's much more of a sort of classic tragedy tale where strive as you might, there are some things that even the heroes of the story aren't going to be able to control. And I really liked that. And I liked the way that, you know, you can make all these choices, but sometimes they don't really matter that much. Some of them matter more than others. Some of them are window dressing only, really. So, that's... I was thinking if we could more formally map out the way different mechanics and choices interact. There aren't any real choices in Ocarina of Time, but I was thinking as a test project to sort of proof of concept. If you could map that out, then you could at least make a visualization that shows, like, hey, it's not like we have like one starting point and everything sort of branches out. It's more of a, like, you start here and you maybe get a couple of things, but they pinch back in towards roughly the same state of affairs, and then maybe you come back out and they pinch back in, and you might end up with, you know, a couple different endings, but or maybe 3 endings that are variations on the same theme. I think that's more common in game design than a lot of people might want, in part because not many people actually finish games, it turns out, as we learned from tracking achievements on different games. So if you were to put that much time into designing the end game, realizing that only a third of players are going to see any of the content, and then you break it into 8 different endings, then all of a sudden very few people are actually seeing any one of those endings, and it's hard to justify spending the time and money on that when you're trying to get, you know, the game out the door in time for Christmas, for example. That's kind of babbly. Sorry. Quickly, D&D. Ah, shit, we're already at 6.5 minutes. D&D. Kyle, when I was playing your campaign, I remember thinking, one, I don't want to metagame this. Like, I can tell the guy is lying. This is a little bit too weird. But I rolled the die, and my character doesn't know he's lying, so I'm gonna go with it. The other bit was, they're not... Your players aren't watching, are they? Was that, there's this concept, I read it, I think... I'll try to find the link later, but somebody once wrote that role-playing could be understood from a mechanical standpoint as making suboptimal choices for the reason of story elements. And I really like that. I think it resonates with a lot of things I like about role-playing. And so I was going along that route. I was making choices that I knew were more fitting towards the character and environment of the story than fit with my understanding of what the best choices would be. I didn't want to win the game. I wanted to experience that. And frankly, knowing that I was probably the most experienced role player at the table besides you, I didn't want to just, you know, grab a hold of the steering wheel and drive the bus on everybody and tell them we're doing this now. You know, it's not always fun to be in charge. Sometimes it's fun to help other people grow. That's a million things. Orange on St. Pat's. Yes, I wore orange on St. Patrick's Day for a while because that is more in line with our heritage. We're Scots-Irish, to the extent that we're Irish, and I was sort of at a point where I was really interested in trying to find what my heritage was and express that. I still play with this sometimes with the idea of sort of trying to figure out who I am and define my identity through external sources like genealogies, heritage, things like that. Occasionally the what generation are you, or only kids from this decade will remember X, or whatever kind of things. I think that's why those are interesting, is we all sort of want to associate and define ourselves in that way. Ultimately, I found that that sort of external definition does not as much good as I was hoping. It leads to a lot of sort of no true Scotsman issues where you say that you're a Gen Y kid and somebody else says, no, you're not really Gen Y. Gen Y's like this. Or you're not really Swedish or Polish because you don't do this other thing. I think ultimately we get into trouble. And then the worst side of that is if we try to apply definitions to other people, and then things get bad. Things get really ugly at that point. Because you don't ever want to be the one, like, outside of a concert telling other people that they're not real fans. You don't want to be the one, like, telling other people that they yeah, no, that's, I've been down that road. I've seen a lot of other people down that road. I don't want to be that person. I bet most people, if they stop to think about it, don't really want to be that person. And a lot of times, you can get to there from this sort of ethnic pride angle. And so now I see people wearing orange, which is rare, but I see it as, well, somebody who at least understands where they're coming from. But at the same time, it's if you did that in a lot of parts of Ireland, a lot of people might just assume that you were trying to pick a fight, or and they might assume your heritage as well. But I don't feel like picking fights with strangers in public, based on who my ancestors were, is really, really a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that. Have a great week, and I will hopefully see something from you, either one of you, sometime this week.